Hare Krishna.
ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरुः श्रीयुतपदकमलं श्रीगुरुन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवम् श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so
very
much for doing the Mangalacharan. So we are reading the Srimad Bhagavatam and we are on Canto 1 still, but on chapter 14. And chapter 14 is the disappearance of Krishna. And Prabhuji, today we have a lot of verses. We have from text 21 to text 29. And how would you like us to do that?
I can just read the translations of the verses, and then I'll read the word for word on the last verse. Is that okay?
That's perfect, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Omagana Timanandasya Ganangana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Text 21. I think that all these earthly disturbances indicate some greater loss to the good fortune of the world. The world was fortunate to have been marked with the footprints of the lotus feet of the Lord. These signs indicate that this will no longer be. O Brahman Shonika, while Maharaj Yudhisthira, observing the inauspicious signs on the earth at that time, was thus thinking to himself, Arjuna came back from the city of the Yadus, Dwarka. When he bowed at his feet, the king saw that his dejection was unprecedented. His head was down, and tears glided from his lotus eyes. Seeing Arjuna pale due to heartfelt anxieties, the king, remembering the indications of the sage Narada, questioned him in the midst of friends. Maharaj Yudhisthira said, My dear brother, please tell me whether our friends and relatives such as Madhu, Bhoja, Dasarha, Arha, Satvata, Andaka, and the members of the Yadu family are all passing their days in happiness. Is my respectable grandfather Surasena in a happy mood? And are my uncle Vasudeva and his younger brothers all doing well? His 7 wives, headed by Devaki, are all sisters. Are they and their sons and daughters-in-law all happy? Are Ugrasena, whose son was the mischievous Kamsa, and his younger brother still living? Are Hritika and his son Kritavarma happy? Are Akrura, Jayanta, Gada, Sharna, and Satrujit all happy? How is Balaram, the personality of Godhead and the protector of the devotees? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Hastinapur, the capital of the Pandavas, was situated somewhere near present New Delhi, and the kingdom of Ugrasena was situated in Mathura. While returning to Delhi from Dwarka, Arjuna must have visited the city of Mathura, and therefore the inquiry about the king of Mathura is valid. Amongst various names of the relatives, the name of Rama or Balaram, eldest brother of Lord Krishna, is added with the words, the personality of Godhead. Because Lord Balaram is the immediate expansion of Vishnu Tattva as Prakash Vigraha of Lord Krishna. The Supreme Lord, although one without a second, expands himself as many other living beings. The Vishnu Tattva living beings are expansions of the Supreme Lord, and all of them are qualitatively and quantitatively equal with the Lord. But expansions of the Jiva Shakti, the category of ordinary living beings, are not at all equal with the Lord. One who considers the Jiva Shakti and the Vishnu Tattva to be on an equal level is considered a condemned soul of the world. Sri Ram or Balaram is the protector of the devotees of the Lord. Baladev acts as the spiritual master of all devotees, and by his causeless mercy the fallen souls are delivered. Sri Baladev appeared as Sri Nityananda Prabhu during the advent of Lord Chaitanya, and the great Lord Nityananda Prabhu exhibited his causeless mercy by delivering a pair of extremely fallen souls, namely Jagai and Madhai. Therefore, it is particularly mentioned herein that Balaram is the protector of the devotees of the Lord. By his divine grace, only one can approach the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. And thus Sri Balaram is the mercy incarnation of the Lord, manifested as the spiritual master, the savior of the pure devotees. So, a long series of verses with no purport. We can see when Srila Prabhupada decides to comment, his comments on the verses, his purports, of the Bhav of Srila Prabhupada. He translates the verses from Sanskrit into the translation in English. He translates them in an unusual way that is somewhat different from other translations that we read that were common. Like, that's why Prabhupada called the Bhagavad Gita his Bhagavad Gita, the Bhagavad Gita as it is. So as it doesn't become mixed up with other commentaries, which were based mostly on the impersonal approach, the Mayavadi approach to worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So they accept that there is a God, but they don't accept God as a person. So then how do you serve? Of course, the ultimate reason for wanting to engage in any kind of spiritual activity is to serve a person. We have to have the personality of Godhead. We can't have this impersonal void because the mind just can't focus. The mind has to be able to focus on a particular form, personality of Godhead. I was very fortunate the other day. In fact, just at the beginning of the week, I received this book in the post. I ordered it online. It just came out. It's a book by Govinda Dasi, one of the earliest devotees who joined Srila Prabhupada in 1967 in San Francisco. And her husband, Gaura Sundar, another famous devotee who joined at the same time. They were not married. They were a couple just living together as everybody did in San Francisco in those days. And just shooting the breeze, everybody. San Francisco was the epicenter of the hippie era, where drugs, sex, and rock and roll were the order of the day. But Govinda Dasi and her husband Gaurasunda, they were searching for something different beyond this hedonistic lifestyle. And they were always searching. So they'd wandered all over the place. They'd met so many different gurus and so many different personalities who claimed to be guru. But finally, although they were not from San Francisco, they moved to San Francisco, and they ended up living in the Haight-Ashbury area, which is where the temple was. And if you remember from the Lilamrita, the temple in San Francisco was the second temple that was built by started by Srila Prabhupada, and it became a huge success. In fact, as big a success as New York, if not bigger. And the devotees worked together very, very well, and it was dynamic. It was the first Rath Yatra was held there. The devotees came back one day. Malati actually. She came back one day with this tiny little Jagannath deity that she found in an Indian store in San Francisco, and she thought it looked cute. There were other figures. Subhadra was there, Balaram was there, but she bought this one because this one was black and the most colorful and painted all these unusual colors. So she bought this and brought it back and showed it to Prabhupada. Prabhupada used to sit. His desk was made up of a suitcase covered in a cloth. That's how he translated the books, and he plunked his typewriter on top of this suitcase. And she came back and entered Prabhupada's room. Devotees used to walk in and out of Prabhupada's room as free as anything. It was like Prabhupada was their father, their grandfather. He was their uncle. Prabhupada was everything to them. He was their shelter. They only knew Prabhupada. They didn't know anything else. These devotees weren't even initiated at the time. And Prabhupada would keep a big glass jar, huge big glass jar, full of gulab jamans on his desk. And anybody who walked in, they immediately would pay obeisances, and they were immediately stuffed with a gulab jaman. Prabhupada always gave prasadam. Always gave prasadam. And so she put this deity, of course she didn't know it was a deity. She said, Prabhupada, do you know anything about this figure? I found it in an Indian shop today. Prabhupada immediately got up from his desk and did full dandavats. He said, oh, Lord Jagannath has come. So who's Lord Jagannath? So Prabhupada explained Jagannath is the Lord of the universe. He explained the whole history of how the form of Jagannath came about from King Indrajumna, and the whole history of the Jagannath deity. And so, well, and Prabhupada immediately says, were there any other figures with this one? And she said, yeah, there were two others. He said, go back immediately and get them. So she went back, she bought them, brought them back to Prabhupada. And Shamasundar, he was a sculptor. He was an artist. Lots of devotees who joined. Govinda Das is an artist. Gaurasundar is an artist. And so Prabhupada showed Jagannath to Shamasundar. And Prabhupada took out a paper and he made a drawing, a very rough sketch with the arms of Jagannath sticking out. And he said, can you carve this? And Prabhupada explained it should be 3 feet high and this wide and this shape and so on and so forth. And Shamasundar carved the first Jagannath, Baladev and Subhadra deities. Of course, the devotees in those days, they were still, addicted to the activities that they were doing before they joined. They just wanted to help out Prabhupada because Prabhupada was such a dynamic, effulgent personality. They didn't know anything about the principles or observing principles. So Shamasundar, as he was carving with his hammer and chisel, as he was carving Jagannath, he would smoke a cigarette and keep it on top of Jagannath's head. And Prabhupada walked into the carving studio one day. He said, what is this? no, you cannot do this. You have to stop this smoking. And that's when Prabhupada introduced the whole idea of the four regulative principles, and people should shave their head, should cut off their beards, and have, so Prabhupada, the next day, he married Govinda Dasi and Shamasundar and Gaurasundar. And he said, no, you cannot live together as boyfriend and girlfriend. This is not the Vedic way. I will perform the wedding. So today, he gave them initiation, Govinda Dasi and Gaurasundar. Tomorrow we will do the wedding. You should call your parents. So, of course, her parents didn't know what was going on. They had a fire sacrifice, and so many devotees were initiated. And the next day, a few of the couples were married. Prabhupada insisted, no, you have to get married. We cannot live together like this. And the devotees didn't even know what to do. What do you do with this banana? So the devotees thought you should eat the banana. Prabhupada said, no, you don't eat the banana. And you put the banana on the fire at the end. The devotees thought, well, this is wrong. And what do we do with these grains? So they were throwing the grains at Prabhupada, not into the fire. It was total chaos. But this is how the movement started. There was no rules or regulations, and nobody was prim and proper and perfect and, knowing everything and knowing the Bhagavad Gita verses by heart. Nobody knew anything. Still, Prabhupada tolerated, and Prabhupada engaged them, and Prabhupada got everybody fired up, and everybody was dynamic and just simply doing whatever Prabhupada asked. They had total and complete faith in Prabhupada. Whatever he asked them to do, they would ask. So it's interesting. I got the news just on Monday that the same day I got this book actually in the mail, that Gaurasundar has passed away just last week, and they had the funeral ceremony for Gaurasundar, and so many devotees spoke at his funeral. And he was just like a wonderful soul. And so many of the early devotees, they're beginning slowly, one by one, they're all leaving and going back to Prabhupada. Now, Govinda Dasi, the wife of Gaurasundar, she is one of two devotees, only two, who are actually mentioned by name in Srila Prabhupada's purports in Srimad Bhagavatam. Because somewhere or other she was into flowers, gardening, and all kinds of activities like that. That was her nature, as well as being a really good artist. They painted all the original paintings that we see in the Krishna book. That big size silver Krishna book. The art was a little naive and not exactly 100% professional. But Prabhupada wanted that art to go and remain in the book. And Prabhupada was delighted with the way that the devotees painted those pictures. So her and Jadharani, they were the devotees who painted those original paintings, and they were guided by Prabhupada. They set up a studio. They eventually moved to New York. They set up a studio in New York. And in Prabhupada's room, Prabhupada was so determined to see that his books were published with his paintings. He said, these paintings are windows to the spiritual world. That he set up the studio with the ladies painting in his room. The same room where Prabhupada took rest, the same room where Prabhupada translated his book, the same room where Prabhupada typed everything up. The ladies were there at the other end of the room painting away. And Jadharani, when I interviewed her for the Lilamrita, she, that famous painting of Lord Nrsingadev being ripped apart ripping Hiranyakashipu apart, that was painted by Jadharani. And she told me that Prabhupada personally took her hand and guided the brush to say, and of course, every day they would go to Prabhupada and they'd say, Prabhupada, how should we paint the demons? What did they look like? Did they have horns or what? Prabhupada said, no, they were kings. They were dressed very elegantly with lots of jewelry and gold crowns and beautiful embroidered dhotis. And so Prabhupada explained every single detail, how to do these things and how to paint this, and what color eyes did this one have, what color eyes did Indra have. They would ask all these questions and Prabhupada would answer immediately. There was one morning walk in Denver, Colorado, where Bali Mardan, he asked Srila Prabhupada a question. And I forget what the question was, but Prabhupada just stopped and he put his cane in the ground and he pondered a few seconds and then he gave the answer. And afterwards, when they go back to the temple, Bali Mardan said to Srila Prabhupada, well, you know, when I asked you that question in the park this morning, you kind of hesitated before you gave me the answer. What was there a reason for that? Prabhupada said, well, I didn't really know the answer. I had to consult with Krishna. So this is the pure devotee. This is Srila Prabhupada and his connection with Krishna. So the reason Govinda Dasi is in the Bhagavatam, and Brahmananda, but particularly Govinda Dasi, this is her word I was reading about today, is because she was into gardening and she eventually moved to Hawaii with her husband, and they started a big temple in Hawaii, flourishing temple, and it became very famous. Hawaii made many hundreds of devotees were made in Hawaii. It's a kind of, if those of you know the United States, Hawaii is a kind of like a tropical island, series of islands, and it has beautiful weather, a little like India. So Prabhupada used to like going there. So one time, Govinda Dasi, she wrote to Prabhupada, he was in Los Angeles. He said, please, you should come and visit us, because Prabhupada liked mangoes. So she would say to Srila Prabhupada, it's the mango season, to encourage Prabhupada to come. And Prabhupada said, okay, drop everything, let's go to Hawaii. And when they got to Hawaii, it wasn't the mango season. And Prabhupada said, Govinda Dasi, she lied to me. So this was the relationship the devotees had with Prabhupada. It was so personal. Everything was personal. And it's the relationship that we develop, that we should be developing with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with our Guru Maharaj, and the whole disciplic succession, because we're all personalities. So Govinda Dasi, she planted the first Tulsi tree in the West, and she developed Tulsi. And from there, her seeds, the seeds that she planted and the seeds she got from the Tulsi, those seeds were sent to all the other temples in the West, all over the world, wherever Prabhupada started a temple. And the Tulsi puja, the Tulsi worship began from there. Because she had read about the whole Tulsi plant, she started to cultivate it and she developed it. And then she told Prabhupada, because I read that the beads we wear on our neck are made from Tulsi, and our chanting beads are also made from Tulsi. Because in the early days, they had no Tulsi, they had no japa. Imagine, there were no japa mala. So the devotees went down to the local haberdashery shop and they bought beads, wooden beads, just wooden beads that people would use for making clothes, or people would use for making curtains or things like that. Whatever was available, they bought, and they strung the beads together themselves. But Prabhupada chanted on those beads. I know for a fact that, and some of the beads were like big, very big things. But Prabhupada chanted on it, whether it was Tulsi, whether it was neem, or whether it was just ordinary rosewood or whatever. Prabhupada chanted on whatever was available. And Prabhupada would hand the beads back, and then, you're my disciple. And I know all the older devotees that I know who joined in the 60s and who didn't have any opportunity to have access to Tulsi beads, they still have their chanting beads that were chanted on by Srila Prabhupada, even though they weren't Tulsi. And Prabhupada chanted on them because Prabhupada could empower anything. Prabhupada was like a touchstone. Anything he touched, it became spiritualized. Anything. And look at the materials he had to work with. So as a thank you to Govinda Dasi, Prabhupada mentioned her in a purport in the Bhagavatam. He said, I'm very grateful to my disciple, Govinda Dasi. She has planted the first Tulsi tree in the West, and she developed the Tulsi. And from there, they sent Tulsi seeds all over the world. She wrote a handbook on how to cultivate Tulsi, and that was sent all over the world. And she took it from there. There was we're reading about the omens, the lakshanas, from the descriptions that we're covering these times. And Prabhupada said in the purport that was covered yesterday, but I thought it was interesting, as it relates back again to the first initiations. The translation to verse 12, I think it was, just see, O Bhima, how the she-jackal cries at the rising sun and vomits fire, and how the dog barks at me fearlessly. And Prabhupada says in only one line purport in all these verses that we just covered. Prabhupada says, these are some bad omens indicating something undesirable in the near future. So this is a prediction of what's going to happen in Kali, in the Kali Yuga. And we see in verse 18, where it mentions rivers, tributaries, ponds, reservoirs, and the mind are all perturbed. Butter no longer ignites fire. And we see this today. And this is mentioned at the time of Govinda Dasi. She even mentions it in her book here, that when they did the first fire yagya, of course, again, the devotees knew nothing about fire yagya. It was something very strange to have a havan and to put grains in a fire, to put a banana and all the smoke and everything. So the devotees knew nothing. And plus, the devotees had no money. They were all kind of, drifting around here and there, going from festival to festival, and music and everything like that. That was their whole life, and whatever they could earn or whatever little they could make. But there was little or no money. Somehow or other, the movement was started on basically Brahmananda, Satrup Maharaj. They had jobs, government jobs, and they just gave all their salary to Prabhupada, and that paid the rent for the temples. And of course, Jayananda, the famous Jayananda, whose picture we put on the Rath Yatra cart, he joined in San Francisco also. He was a taxi driver, and he had somehow or other collected, banked his salary for a long, long time, and it was a very frugal person, didn't spend. He was a little older than the others. He wasn't into drugs, he wasn't into drink, he wasn't into all this hippie stuff. He was clean shaven, he wore a suit. He was a cultivated person. And he gave $5,000 to Srila Prabhupada in 1967, every single penny that he had in the bank, and that went towards printing the early books. So it was a very intimate relationship there. But before Jayananda came along was when the early fire sacrifices were done. And the devotees didn't have money. Prabhupada gave them a list of all the things that they should buy, the different grains, the bananas, the paper plates, to keep the grains on to put in the fire, and butter, so they could melt the butter and make ghee. Because you couldn't buy ghee in those days. Nobody knew what ghee was even. This is, Lord Chaitanya said, the further west you go, the more insane they are. And you can't get any further west than San Francisco. You fall into the ocean after that. So it's a long way from India to San Francisco. Even from London, it's a 12-hour flight. So the devotees, to compromise, they got margarine instead of ghee. And it reminded me of that story. I was reminded of it when you read this verse where the butter doesn't catch fire. Of course, Prabhupada didn't know what margarine was, but they had the ladle in the container with the margarine melted, and Prabhupada's pouring on the fire, and nothing is happening. It just it squirts out, because margarine is completely Kali Yuga product. So they just had to light the fire as best as they could without the ghee, because there was no ghee, because the devotees thought, well, there's no butter, so let's get margarine, because that's all the money we have to buy is to buy margarine. So these were the early days of the movement. I mean, we were completely blind and dumb and deaf. We knew absolutely nothing about anything, but just see how tolerant Srila Prabhupada was. And he cultivated that ignorance, and he took away that ignorance coming from the word ignore. So we were completely submersed in completely tamagun, 100% in this so-called Western civilization. You couldn't even call it a civilization. It's demoniac culture, completely averse to the Vedic culture, but somehow or other, because of Prabhupada's Shakti, he was able to take these lumps of coal, basically, which you can do nothing with except burn. He was able to take these lumps of coal and turn them into diamonds. And they spread this mission all over the world and brought Krishna consciousness literally to every town and village. And it certainly didn't come from our potency for any degree of any Shakti that we might have had. We had nothing. But we had faith in Prabhupada. We had faith in the disciplic succession. We had faith in the philosophy. And the devotees could see directly how effulgent Srila Prabhupada was. Just like in the early days when Prabhupada had his heart attack and they took him to the hospital because that's all they knew. Prabhupada said, take me out of this place. All they want to do is take blood and do this and do that and do the other. So the personalities mentioned here in the purport, that purport we read today, we're talking about, Prabhupada's talking a lot about Balaram and how Balaram is the most merciful. We're particularly mentioned here is that Balaram is the protector of the devotees of the Lord. So those of you who have been fortunate enough to visit Vrindavan, you will know that all the temples in Vrindavan, they're all Radha Krishna temples. There's Radha Damodar, Radha Bankabihari, Radha this, Radha that, all named after Radha, except ours. Ours is Krishna Balaram Mandir. So why did Prabhupada name Krishna Balaram? Of course, Radha Shyamasundar is there. Radha Krishna deities are there, Gaunitai is there. But the main deity is Krishna Balaram. And a lot of devotees, particularly the older devotees, they have analyzed that the Shaktavesha avatar in the form of Srila Prabhupada is he's manifesting his Shakti, the Shakti of Lord Nityananda. He's an amba or a limb of Lord Nityananda to be able to spread this mission all over the world. And Prabhupada is saying here that Lord Balaram is the protector of the devotees. Baladev acts as the spiritual master of all the devotees. And by his causeless mercy, the fallen souls are delivered. Sri Baladev appeared as Sri Nityananda Prabhu during the advent of Lord Chaitanya, and the great Lord Nityananda Prabhu exhibited his causeless mercy by delivering a pair of extremely fallen souls, namely Jagai and Madhai. And there were so many Jagais and Madhais in those western cities where Srila Prabhupada went, and they were brought on board and became devotees. These Jagais and Madhais. So where does that potency come from? Everywhere Prabhupada went, he would defeat any of these bogus philosophers who came along to any of the meetings in the early days. And he wouldn't tolerate any nonsense. Anybody who came, who was spouting the Mayavad philosophy, Prabhupada would immediately put them down and make sure that they didn't have a leg to stand on. So when where Prabhupada is imploring us to take shelter of Lord Nityananda. How do we take shelter of Lord Nityananda? Well, of course, a good place to start is by reading Chaitanya Charitamrita and studying the teachings of Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya in the CC, and beg for the mercy. Srila Gaur Govinda Swami, when he would come to Kenya the few times he came to Nairobi and Kisumu before he left us, he would say, our religion is a crying religion. We are simply crying, begging for the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu. And if we get the mercy of Nityananda Prabhu, our success is assured. It's guaranteed. We cannot go wrong. So in this way, if we beg for the mercy of Nityananda, and we can get the mercy of Lord Nityananda by concentrating on our great, great, great good fortune that we have got from Srila Prabhupada, and I'm begging for his mercy to give us the insight. The Shakti is already there. It's already dormant within us. Krishna consciousness is there within every one of us. We just have to allow it to come out. Just like the potency, the fire is already there in the firewood, but we have to allow it. We have to fan the flame. And when we fan that flame of bhakti, then it will come. And gradually, as we allow it, we have to get out of the way and get these obstacles out of the way, the obstacles of the mind, the obstacles of the body, the obstacles of our intelligence or lack of intelligence, whatever it might be. Just get rid of all these obstacles. Don't allow them to get in the way. Krishna consciousness can be, anybody can engage in Krishna consciousness. In that early record in 1968 that Srila Prabhupada had recorded in New York, where he's explaining the Mahamantra and what it means. And by the way, that recording was sent all over the world to various studios. And one of the places that it was sent was to Apple Studios, the studios of the Beatles. And Prabhupada says in that record, he gives a short talk to introduce the Mahamantra, and he says, anybody can participate, even a dog can participate, even a dog. So what excuse is there for us? So when the Apple Studios received the record, the first person who played it was George Harrison. And then a year later, Shyamasundar arrived and happened to meet with George Harrison. And George Harrison says, where have you been? We've been waiting for you a long time, because he had heard the record. So he was already familiar with the Mahamantra. And when he did that in the war with Pakistan and Bangladesh, George Harrison put on a concert for Bangladesh to raise funds for the refugees as a result of that war. And at the end of that concert, which went out all over the world, and that was shown in every cinema on the planet, raised millions of dollars for the refugees for Bangladesh. At the end of that, he played with Ravi Shankar, and he sang the Mahamantra, My Sweet Lord. That went out everywhere. And so many devotees became devotees as a result of hearing the Mahamantra from George Harrison. And then, of course, George Harrison, he later met Srila Prabhupada. He wanted to become his disciple and take initiation from Prabhupada. Prabhupada thought that would be very difficult for you because of your social position, and you're a world famous musician. People would say that, we have taken advantage of you and we want you only for your money. And George said, well, I really, really want to have a devotee name. And Prabhupada said, you already have a devotee name. Your name is Hari's son. So you are the son of Hari. So George Harrison was satisfied with that, but Prabhupada accepted him as his disciple without formally initiating him, as he did with so many people. And then, of course, when Shyamasundar, when he carved those first Jagannath deities in San Francisco, even though he was smoking his beaties and keeping them on top of Lord Jagannath, he eventually stopped, and they were painted up nicely and they were installed by Prabhupada. They had their first Rath Yatra, spontaneous Rath Yatra. The devotees took the deities down to Golden Gate Park in San Francisco, and they had a spontaneous Rath Yatra with thousands of people attended. This was just days after they'd finished carving them. So the first Rath Yatra was in San Francisco. And Prabhupada had to explain to the devotees, Jagannath Puri and the meaning of Jagannath Puri and Lord Chaitanya and all the years that he spent in Jagannath Puri and the whole thing, the pulling, Jagannath, the gopis pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan, pulling Krishna into your heart. Everything came as a result of that. Probably these were kind of spontaneous philosophical stories that just come out as a practical result of the daily activities and the devotees just questioning Prabhupada. And as Prabhupada says in the introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, we should scrutinizingly study this Bhagavad Gita and all his books. Everything is contained in his books. Everything is contained in his purports. We don't need to engage in any other way, except, of course, it's nice to know and to hear of the leelas of Srila Prabhupada and different devotees. But for philosophical understanding, all we need is Prabhupada's books and the Maha Mantra. Now, I was listening. I went out for a japa walk yesterday on that rare occasion in England when you can get 10 minutes of sunshine. There's a lake near my house. It's a reservoir, a beautiful place with swans and ducks and very, very scenic, where I go for my japa walk, and you can dodge in between the trees to try and get shelter of the rain if it's not sunny. And I was just trying to concentrate a little bit more than I normally do on my japa. And I was thinking to myself, wow, how many words are there in the Maha Mantra?
16.
16, exactly. How many syllables?
32.
32, exactly. 32. You know what? I caught myself reciting 28 syllables. And I couldn't believe it. And then I went on, and then I made sure that I recited 32 syllables. And then after a few minutes, I caught myself again, 28 syllables. Because, and I've listened to other devotees even chanting when they're doing kirtan. We don't use the 32 syllables. Prabhupada says that so often. You're perfectly correct. 16 words, 32 syllables. Prabhupada emphasizes this, pronounce every syllable. I found myself chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So I left out 4 syllables. I didn't say Rama. So if we want to get the benefit of the Maha Mantra, we have to focus on our japa. We have to focus on our kirtan. We have to focus on the pronunciation. We have to focus on the hearing as well as the chanting. And as soon as we kind of let it slide and just mechanically go through the motions of chanting, then of course, where does the sound vibration that we are producing with our tongue, where does it go if we're not listening to it? It goes into the ether. So it's lost. It's gone. Somebody else gets the benefit. The trees around the lake where I walk, the swans, the ducks, the dogs out with their japa walk owners, they're getting the benefit, but I'm not getting the benefit. And yet, I still go through the motions of chanting my rounds every day. But if I'm not concentrating and I'm not listening and I'm not focused, and if I just let it slide, I don't get the benefit. So it's just, I just caught myself doing it. And then I caught myself 2 or 3 times, and then I realized, wow, how long have I been doing this? How long have I been just neglecting? And what is the 10th, the last offense? It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. And every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnav must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success, Krishna Prem. This is what we want. We don't want to go through the rituals of, attending a morning program, getting up early, taking a shower, putting on our tilak, chanting our rounds, and it's just mechanical. Then it just becomes another religion. What is the point of that? Our goal is prema bhakti. Our goal is Krishna. Our goal is like our krura. Our krura is mentioned in the purport here. But in the verse, when Yudhishthira is inquiring, one of the people he inquires about is Akrura. Akrura means gentle. And so the gopis, they called him Krura, which means the opposite. You're very cruel, because he came to Vrindavan to bring Krishna and Balram back to have that famous wrestling match with Kamsa. Kamsa sent out the invitation. But the point is, our japa, that is the core, that is the key, that is what brings us forward, or that is what holds us back. If we just lose sight of where we're going, and we lose sight of our japa, we've lost sight of everything. And yet we've gone through the motions of picking up our bead bag and reciting the mantra as best we can. But if we concentrate even more, as Krishna says in the 10th chapter, Tesham satata yoktanam bhajatam priti purvakam tadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayanti te. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, and who doesn't want to serve Krishna with love, when we're chanting our daily japa mala, I give the understanding by which they can come to me. Krishna says that very clearly. I give the understanding by which they can come to me. So if we want to get closer and closer and closer to Krishna, then focus. We urgently need to focus. We see the way the world is going. It's chaos. It's completely crazy from every point of view, from no matter where you go, from every angle. And there's nothing to be gained from it. There's nothing to be gained from focusing on the trials and tribulations of this life, and this politics, and this wars, or whatever, this lack of war, rumors of war, whatever is going on in the world. Yes, we're aware of it. We know it's there. We know it's going on. Politics is politics. That will always be the case. It'll never change. But we should not be diverted, or allow all of this Kali Yuga stuff to divert us from the actual goal of life, which is to achieve Krishna Prem in this lifetime. Why we want to wait? Why wait for some nebulous, unknown future? We do it now, today, this instant, this very second. And the result is there. We see from the results from these early devotees, like Gaura Sundar and Govinda Dasi and so many other couples. This movement, remember, Prabhupada sent these couples all over the world, not sannyasis. There were no sannyasis then. He sent these devotee couples, married couples. And he sent them all over the world. They started temples in Germany, in Hamburg, in London, in Rome, in Paris, in Montreal, everywhere. They were started by couples, by devotee couples. Many of them with children. So it's not like that householders have no potency, or householders have no reason to have success in Krishna consciousness. We have to concentrate on what we can do, and we can do that by rendering service to the pure devotee, rendering service to Srila Prabhupada, rendering service in whatever way, shape, or form that we can manage to muster within our own capability. We don't have to be in the category of Narada Muni, traveling all over the universe, doing things that we're just not capable of doing. We do whatever we can, but do it in quality. Whatever we do it with quality. The quality is the focus, not the quantity. Whatever little service we can give, patram pushpam palam tayam, a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water. Krishna doesn't ask for the earth. He just asks a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or water. Of course, we can give more than that, but this is the minimum that Krishna suggests, that if you're completely impoverished, who cannot afford a glass of water to offer to Krishna? So I just thought I'd share that with you. That was my own shortcoming in my own spiritual life, my own spiritual development that I'm trying to cultivate. That I was astonished. It's now over 40 years since I've been a devotee, 40 odd years, and still I'm trying to adjust my japa, because it becomes automatic, and it becomes we slot into this category, this mindless category, where it just passes us by, and we've lost it, and then it's gone. And when it's gone forever. You can't bring it back. When you chant your round, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, it's gone in the ether. Someone else gets the benefit. We don't. So let's focus on what we can do. Thank you very much for listening. Time is nearly up. And if there are any questions or comments, I'd really like to hear whatever anybody has to say. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for submerging us in Prabhupada's Leela Amrita. We love your class because you take us to that era when, we are, at least I'm not fortunate to have met Srila Prabhupada. And when you talk, I feel that I'm there, I'm seeing him. So thank you very much for immersing us into his katha. And then,
Thank you.
And then also emphasizing this inattentive japa. You might be missing out syllables. Here we are looking at the phones, I'm making recipes, I'm making the plan for the day. So we have a long way to go. But
Yes.
before we start the question and answer session, we have only 4 minutes. So I'd like to first acknowledge the presence of a new devotee who has joined this group called Harish Suthar. So Prabhuji, thank you for joining us, and we meet every day at the same time on the same link. So we would be grateful if you can join every day or at your convenience whenever possible, but it's the same time. So to welcome you, is it possible to switch on your video, Harish Suthar Prabhuji, so that we can see you? So if we meet you on the road, we can at least recognize you. We can't see you, we can just see. Yeah. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for joining us. Where are you joining us from? Can't hear you. You are muted. Hare Krishna.
Nairobi.
Oh, Nairobi. Thank you very much for joining, Prabhuji, for this session. So let us all chant 3 Hari Bols to welcome Prabhuji to our group.
Jai.
Hari
Jai
Bol,
Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
Hari Bol, Hari Bol.
So thank you, Prabhuji, for joining once again. So we open up to question and answer. We have just 3 minutes, and I can quickly ask a question till devotees are thinking of a question or a comment. Prabhuji, in Dwarka, we have lots of temples of the expansions. So you have the main temple of Dwarkadish. And then there are Anuruddha and Sankarshana. So is the temple of Sankarshana Balram's temple?
Yes, yes, it is. Yeah, Dwarka is as you know better than me, Dwarka is a very different mood to Vrindavan or even Mathura, and it's where the more like the Aishvarya mood is the focus is on the Aishvarya mood, and you can see also that Krishna is not even present with Rukmini. We have our own Rukmini Dwarkadish temples in ISKCON, particularly Los Angeles being the biggest one. But Rukmini, because of Durvasa Muni, the infamous Durvas, he didn't allow Rukmini. But yeah, that whole mood is one of Aishvarya. Yes, Sankarshan is one of the manifestations of Lord Balaram. So is the Madunga. Madunga and the cartels. Prabhupada said that their actual manifestation of Balaram, when the first Madunga came from India in the 60s, 68, I think the first one came. They shipped over from India. Those original clay Madungas, and when they took it out of the box, immediately Prabhupada did Dandavats to the Madunga and said this should not be put on the ground. It should be put on a cushion, and it should be protected because this is a manifestation of Balaram. So Balaram is Krishna's paraphernalia is manifest as Balaram is his paraphernalia is manifestation of Balaram also. Because Balaram is serving, he's serving all the manifest leelas of Lord Krishna, all the functions around that, and all the aspects that make it happen are provided by Balaram. Everything is we owe a great deal of great gratitude to Lord Balaram, and particularly us to Lord Nityananda. To cultivate a relationship with Lord Nityananda is, and we can do that, surprisingly enough, through our japa. We cultivate the relationship through our japa, gradually. All the personalities, the Maha Mantra, it's not called the Maha Mantra for no reason, are contained within the Maha Mantra. And they will all manifest literally before our eyes, when we focus on our internal sadhana. That will bring everything to the fore, and everything will just automatically be manifest. No need for any extraneous examples. That we don't need any superficial miracles. It will happen automatically.
Thank you very much, Prabhuji. I think we've exhausted our time, and there are no more questions or comments. So I'll hand over to Parth Prabhu. Prabhuji, Hare Krishna. Is it possible for you to end this session for today?
Hare Krishna. Yes, Mataji. Thank you very much, Prabhuji, for your nice class.
My Parth Prem Prabhu. Thank you.
Also, thanks very much. You are entering us in the transcendental pastimes of Srila Prabhupada and his devotees. That time, the mood, the passion, the encouragement, the dedication, the beginning year of the ISKCON movement. So thank you very much, Prabhuji. It is very nice, interesting, and encouraging us to go further. Thank you, Prabhuji. Yeah, also thanks all the devotee who joining here. I request all the devotee, please unmute yourself and chant Hare Krishna mantra for glorification of His grace. Vidura Prabhuji, please join. Hare Krishna, Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare
Rama, Hare
Hare
Rama, Hare Rama.
Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namo. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. His grace Vidura Prabhu ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for an excellent class, Hare Krishna. Thank you all for joining in. Hare Krishna.